Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Upper Tier Podcast, and tonight I'm joined by our resident referee in a couple of weeks' time, soon to be a goalkeeper as well.
Yeah.
Mark, how are we?
How's it going? Well, thanks for having me on again.
No bother at all. Good to have you on. Well, we are going to talk tonight. We have a special episode. It is transfer window, but we thought we'd dull it down a little bit because it started off a little bit dull, and we would look at
Yes. Premier League's
Premier
worst
League's
signings.
worst signings, which creates a lot of debate and a lot of controversy.
Expecting a lot of
Pending,
comments underneath the video here after it
absolutely,
goes out.
pending on what parameters you put in there and how you looked at it. But before we get into the list, talk to me. 2 weeks' time, I think it is, Town.
Yeah, down on Rat Coffee Road, Manu Town versus Man United Legends, Saturday, 25th of June, around the half-2 kickoff. It's to raise money for Astro Turf Pitch to be built down on Rat Coffee Road, which is vital with any club around the country. We know how many teams they have down in Minute as well, so it's going to be a fun-filled day. There's going to be stuff for the family to do, and obviously, when you can get your tickets on Eventbrite, you're going to get to see the likes of Dennis Irwin, David May, Wes Brown, Lee Sharp, Brian McClare, Quinton Fortune, and maybe someone else in goal for a little while as well, making a
And
return to
none of those
football.
names are anything to do with Premier League's worst signings or this
No,
episode.
no,
But
no.
what I would say to our viewers, if you can get to it, regardless of whether you're a Man United fan or not, try and get down and support it. They are a great day out. You'll have a
Mm,
lot of fun, and it's great throwing back seeing these legends and stuff like that.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
a certain resident referee is going to be between the sticks on the day.
For a few minutes, yeah, making me return. I haven't played in a long time. Obviously, with my varied career with Wayside Celtic, Dublin City under 21s, and Home Farm. So, yeah,
And
I'm
a
looking
whole lot
forward
of
to it, man.
Astro in between.
Whole lot of Astro, yeah, definitely. Best menswear playing against each other, the green against Jervis and all. So, yeah, no, looking forward to it. It's going to be a great day. We're going to have the trophies down there in the day as well at the clubhouse. And then it's back to the Glen Royal that evening for a dinner. And, it's great because you can get in these games, generations, granddads going with their sons and their grandsons and going to see, like you said, anyone can go. But as a United fan, I think we need something to cheer ourselves up, and it's a great bit of nostalgia as well. So really looking forward to it. It should be a great day.
Yeah, the one thing I do notice at the Legend 11 games and stuff like that is that like you can get a grandfather with a father with a kid and stuff like that. So it's a generational thing and stuff like that. And I always say on the podcast, it's great to understand the history of your club to be
Oh, it's
able to
brilliant.
enjoy the
Like,
success that you're going through at the time potentially. So
yeah, like I was
really,
at
really
one.
important.
I think how many years ago? Probably 6 years ago or so, 7 years ago maybe. Out in Dunleary, it was Rosemount Legends against the Man United Legends team, and I ended up having a nice few points with Ray Wilkins sitting there chatting to him, and it's just like Brian Robson was there, Ray Wilkins, Frank Stapleton, David May, unbelievable stories from these lads. And but obviously, after Ray passed away, you look back and think, Jesus, I'm so glad I had that opportunity to speak to him, sit down, because he was such a gent. He had time for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's really, like I said, just get down on the day. It's going to be brilliant. I know there's bus loads coming from Belfast. There's lads coming over from Manchester as well. So um, it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be massive, and best of luck to Minute. We'll be down there covering it as well with Tony and with the Minute gang and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So we'll bring you footage and hopefully a few interviews, and we'll certainly bring you footage of one resident referee between the sticks. Hopefully he doesn't make any mistakes on the day.
Oh, I won't count on
No,
that.
you've laid down a marker there now for Dennis Irwin, haven't you, to protect you?
That's it. Too right. And I'm after
It
seeing
should be fun.
Pickford and Neuer there tonight playing, so I've a lot of standards that I have to reach.
Maybe Neuer, not so much
Yeah,
Pickford.
yeah.
I don't know if you're saying that German
Slight,
guy was shocking.
yeah, slightly longer arms than Pickford anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the show then. This is our Premier League worst signings, and what we did was we had a chat earlier in the day, and we said we'll do a show tonight because we're filling in these shows because obviously there's not much football going on. Certainly not of huge interest to people anyway, whatever about the
Yeah,
Nations League as they call it. But we said we'd come on, have a look at, take a walk back through history at the Premier League signings, and I have to say, I really, really enjoyed going back through this because some
that's
names
good.
came up through it, which was absolutely crazy. Always generates debate and conversation. So let us
Mm.
know in the comments what you think your top 10 worst signings are in no particular order, just whichever ones maybe related to your club, or related to, a particular match or whatever it
Yeah,
is back in your
yeah.
memory or something like that. But let us know what you think, and let us
And
know if
don't
you agree
forget,
with
lads,
ours.
the Premier League started in '92, so it goes a long way back. Don't be giving us real recent names as well,
30 years. 30 years we're looking back on this now.
mad.
Um, so we said we put together a list of 10. We haven't conversed on it. We will show them, but we haven't conversed on it. Surely there's going to be overlap because there's obviously some that stick out a
Definitely.
mile.
And
Uh,
you know yourself, coach, from doing this, we have to have a few honourable mentions because there's so many players over the
mm,
years. Like I was saying to you before we came on air, there I could have had 11 or 10 United players.
mm.
I have listen, I have a joint second place, so technically I have 11, but
That's
you
okay.
know it's just
That's
try to
okay.
fit a few in there.
Yeah. We don't mind if the referees break the rules. That's okay. If they say it's okay, then it's okay. No whistle or
Listen, we'll,
cards.
we'll go to VAR for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through it today, and what I did was I tried to write down some names myself first, and then
Yeah,
I had a look through Google. And on one of the lists on Google, there's 150,
it's
150
unreal.
of account
Yeah.
of for signings and stuff. And I'm sure there's probably more as well, but it's
Yeah.
mad to think about it. Kick us off then. Give us one. Give us one off the list,
Um,
and not
I'm
necessarily
going
order.
at number 10. Well, I'm going for Francis Jeffers from Everton to Arsenal. 13.8 million in 2001, which was an awful lot of money back then. And I think he only scored 4 goals. It was in his career there. Obviously, he came through the ranks at Everton. He was known for his kind of goal poaching style. But he was coming into an Arsenal team that had the likes of Bergkamp and Henry. It was a disaster waiting to happen. And I know he's a little bit unlucky with injury, but I think for 13.8 million back then, I think it was a bad transfer.
Yeah, absolutely. He was on my list as well. I remember him. I remember him coming in. And I remember the shock and awe on Arsenal fans'
Yeah,
faces and stuff like that. Some of them thought, because I think he was coming in on the back, he was at Everton, wasn't he? And
yeah,
he had done okay at Everton. He wasn't too bad.
yeah.
Um,
No, he come through the ranks at Everton, and he had, I
mm,
think, 2 or 3 good seasons in the first team with Everton
yeah,
at the time. So,
mm,
he was doing really well. He would have played with the likes of Kevin Campbell up front and all there.
yeah,
So, yeah, it was a weird signing.
yeah. 4 goals in 548 minutes of total play.
It's crazy.
So
Stat line.
yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, so absolute madness. Um, I'll give you my first one again, not necessarily in order. This is one that would shock a lot of people because this guy was actually a very good footballer. I'm going to kick it off with Kevin Davis.
Mm.
Um, Blackburn Rovers signed from Southampton for 10 million in
Mm.
1998. Scored 1 goal in his 21 appearances with the club, and Blackburn were relegated. Um,
And then he went to some local rivals after that and had a really great career.
Yeah, but he was an incredible baller at the time. It's hard to
Yeah,
believe. I think sometimes with these guys, the price of the fee and stuff like that weighs them down heavily and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
I always remember him being a really, really good footballer. So yeah, on that list. But in terms of Blackburn, yeah,
yeah. No, he
no
was
go.
always a tough player to mark. He'd always back into defenders, and he
Hmm.
was great at controlling and using his head as well. So,
Yeah, he was a stocky
yeah,
fecker as well. And he was very
yeah, yeah.
strong as well. Like yeah, but
And loved the tackle, loved the tackle.
absolutely never shirked one. Give us another one.
It's a bit of a weird one, but I'm going with a West Brom to Stoke transfer. Berahino. He was he was built up to be this fantastic player for West Brom. He was banging in the goals. He went to Stoke for 12.5 million. He played 28 games. His contract was cut short, and in those 28 games, he scored 0 goals. So it was a disaster. He had an awful lot of trouble off the field. He was very disruptive. I think it was Mark Hughes was the manager at the time, and the two of them didn't get on really at all. And then his contract was terminated when he was arrested for drink driving. So I think overall, in the overall scheme of things, it was an absolutely awful transfer.
Yeah, am I right at thinking as well? He had a fairly public falling out as well with Tony Pulis.
Yeah, he was. That was when he didn't he sign for West Brom, or did he go back to West Brom when Pulis was in charge? I
I
think,
think
did
he
he?
did, but I think what
Yeah,
he did was he tried to contrive a move twice, didn't he? I
yeah,
think the
yeah,
first time, I think, didn't he have a go off the fans or something like that to kind of like really push it through or something
yeah.
like that? So there was a bad taste there, all right. A talented boy. Definitely a
He
talented boy. There
was,
was
he
talent there. He
was.
scored some really good goals.
Yeah, he just seemed like a tortured soul, if you will.
Fell out
He
of love with
just
football, I'd say.
he did,
Fell
and
out
it
of
was a
love with
shame
football.
because he's only young.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
but
for
certainly a
me,
good
yeah,
talent.
he's definitely in there. Like I said, 28 games, no goal scored, and all the stuff that happened off the pitch. I think it was just a disaster from the start.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed going down through the list at times, and these are Premier League's worst signings. Some of these guys were real proper footballers, but for one
Yeah,
reason or another, this move just collapsed and didn't work out for them. So that's
yeah,
how they make the list. I'll give you my second one again in no particular order. Um, no prizes for guessing this one. Alexis Sanchez and Manchester United.
yeah. I have him here on my
Um,
list as well.
Signed from Arsenal in a swap for Mkhitaryan in 2018. 4.5 year deal, reportedly 391,000 per week,
Yeah,
with a 75,000 appearance bonus and a
yeah,
1.1 million annual bonus. Now, on the face of this is a terrible signing and stuff like that. But if you're Alexis Sanchez's agent, take a bow, my friend.
yeah,
Take a
exactly.
bow,
And don't
because if
forget,
that's
he,
what
he he was a good piano player as well. Do you remember that video when he
he
signed?
was, yeah, absolutely. And I remember it got to a stage, didn't it? It got so toxic that they stopped playing him because of the appearance bonus, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah,
Because they
and like
just wouldn't pay him the appearance bonus.
he said after his first training session that he didn't fancy it at all. Like after our first training session with United.
Yeah.
But yeah, 391,000. I think remember he went on loan over to Italy. We were still paying 200,000 pounds a week of his wages. Like
Crazy.
even when
Crazy.
he was on his way out the door, we were still giving him a good whack, like.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
no, listen, it was. And I actually liked Mkhitaryan. I actually liked him, but obviously
Mm,
him and Mourinho had a bit of a falling out, so it was time for him to move on. Then, and
yeah.
at the time, I thought, Jesus, yeah, Sanchez, because remember he scored some cracking goals against us, and he was doing really well in that Arsenal team. But just, I don't know what happened to him. His
Uh,
confidence
uh,
just,
and went to the Italian league and has been playing really, really well.
yeah, yeah.
You know
Like
what I mean?
it's one of those things where like if your head's not in it from the start, like there's another a guy who'd be top of my list who also signed for United who we'll get on to later. Listen,
Mm.
if you don't want to be there, like don't be there. There was no point. He how many goals did he score? I think three or four goals, was it?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Yeah, it
And,
was.
and
It
I
was.
think the
It was.
first one was a penalty, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of get the duck off his back, sort of a thing. So
That's
it
right. Yeah,
was
absolutely.
a
Give us
sham.
give us your next one.
I'm going with a lad that signed from Roma to Liverpool for 18 million in 2009. He came in as a replacement, well, tried to replace the legend that is Xavi Alonso, and it's Alberto Aquilani. Yeah, just never made it, did he? He was there 3 years. I think he sold him on for 1.8 million from what I read. So it was a big loss within 3 years as well. But like it was big boots to fill, wasn't it? When you think of it,
Absolutely,
like
absolutely. There wasn't. We were going through a period at that time where we never really landed our first targets or our second
mm,
targets. We always had to settle for kind of third down the list or something like
mm,
that. And when you're trying to replace a guy like Alonso and stuff like that, that's a mammoth task anyway. What a baller Alonso was.
yeah.
But yeah, absolutely,
Like
Aquilani. Yeah,
in fairness, Rafa is and was a fantastic coach, but he's not a miracle worker either.
he had an eye at times for some very strange moves in the transfer market. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
Um, if you want to know what we're talking about, go back and Google the history of his transfers and look at the boys he surrounded himself with at times.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's a strange
One or
one, all
two
right.
gems in there though at the same time.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder was that by default or what was it? You know what I mean? He certainly, yeah, depends on, yeah, a good way to describe them, gems. Yeah,
Gems, yeah. Well,
yeah,
listen, Roy came in then and brought Paul Konchesky, so
yeah, absolutely. um, my third one I'll give you is a man that we both know pretty well. Why always me? Mario Balotelli. to Liverpool. Signed from AC Milan, 18 million in 2014. Um, he was the last available choice to replace Suarez. He scored one Premier League goal in 939 minutes. I'm not sure if that goal was the one where he ripped the penalty out of, was it Jordan Henderson's
Yeah.
hands?
Oh, but who would it be? Was it Milner or Henderson? I
No,
know the
do
one
you know?
you're.
No, I'm actually thinking the one where he ripped the penalty out of his hands. I think that was a Champions League game, wasn't it, or the European
Oh
tie?
yeah.
Because remember we
Um.
scored the penalty. Was it
Yeah.
Ludogorets or something we were against or something like that? And he scored that penalty and stuff like that. And I was just
He.
thinking, and I just remember the look on Hendo's face, going, "I'm not getting into a row with this
Yeah.
lad. He
He's
was
a
a
head case.
monster of a man,
Head
head
case.
banger, head
So
banger,
remember the story of him lighting fireworks in the gaff and all. He's just an absolute nut job.
nut
So do you
job."
remember he played for City in a preseason game in America, and he tried to backheel it into the goal, like, but he hit it wide. And Mancini on the sideline was absolutely going mad and whipped him off. And Balotelli's coming off in a huff like a little teenager getting told
Mm,
off. Like, he was
yeah.
an absolute head case. I think he's playing in the third division in Italy or something now at the minute.
Yeah, he's probably playing somewhere where people don't tell him what to do and don't
Yeah,
have a go off him. And hats off to Mancini that day as well. He's a braver man than me,
yeah,
having a pop off him, because this guy is a proper lunatic. But yeah, no, it was as I said, as we just said when we were talking about it previously, our last available choice to
yeah.
replace Suarez. So yeah, interesting. Give us your next one.
It's another. we're on a trend here. It's another signing for Liverpool, another striker, and it was a British record transfer at the time.
Mo Salah.
Certain. A man who literally just got married over the weekend, Andy Carroll, 35 million, 6 goals in 2 years. Never. Listen, I know he was unlucky with injury as well, but it wasn't the greatest signing in the history of football, was it?
No, I wouldn't think so. And I have him on my list as well. 36.9 million. And I know he came in on a bit of a wave from Newcastle. 6 goals in 44 games. Flattered to deceive. I'm not giving him a pass on being injured. I'm just not
Yeah, yeah,
accepting it.
yeah. Sure,
But
he
yeah,
was with Reading last season, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah. And then I mean, he had a reasonable stint at West Ham, didn't he?
Mm. Again, it was
Um,
kind of blighted by injury and stuff like that. But
yeah, but he
listen,
came in. He was more of an impact player, wasn't he? Coming off the
yeah,
bench to give
yeah,
them just
bench,
slightly a different option and stuff
yeah.
like that and all. Yeah, but certainly an interesting character. And
He's only
yeah, but
33 as well. When you think of it now, like
it's
he
mad,
just
isn't it?
seems, yeah, it seems his name has been banging around for years.
Yeah, like when you just mentioned to me there that he got married at the weekend or whatever it was, I was thinking, is this his second or third wife now?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just it's weird, yeah.
The stag
Um,
do was meant to be good fun anyway.
Possibly. um, I'll give you my next one. One that I think most Chelsea fans would agree with. Danny Drinkwater.
Yeah,
Um, who I think is, and I think as far as I know, and talking with Ian earlier, I think he's still on the books, isn't he? They're still trying to
he
get
is.
rid of him.
Yeah, 35
Um,
million. Should have never left Leicester.
yeah. 12 Premier League appearances in his debut season, then went out on loan to Burnley and to Aston Villa, which ended up even more disastrous. He's a couple of run-ins there and stuff
Yeah,
like that and all. And
I
I think
think at
was it,
one stage he was playing for the Burnley under 23s. He was put into the 23s.
yeah, I think there was one. Wasn't there a deal or something like that where he tried to leave a
Yeah,
deal with another player's
yeah, yeah.
girlfriend or something like that, and
If the tabloids are to be believed,
if the tabloids are to be believed, those dirty rags. But that's the story that's going around. But I tell you, and I kind of looked at this. Of course, if you're listening to the show or you're viewing the show, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Hit a like on it as well, and drop a comment in there if you could. We appreciate all the support. But yeah, it's interesting when you get down through this and you're trying to look at the dynamic of how you arrive at who goes on your list.
yeah,
And one of the things I looked at, and it was a valid point when we were talking in the WhatsApp group today. Darren made the point very well that you do have to look at the transfer fee, don't you? Because the
yeah,
magnitude of the transfer fee often shows the magnitude of the collapse of the signing, basically, when we think of
yeah,
like Lukaku and stuff like that,
yeah,
100 million. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a valid point. But I also tried when I was doing this today, I tried to steer clear of the currency, the last season. Because I think with last season we could do plenty of lists
Yeah,
or
yeah,
combined 11s off that as well. Um,
definitely.
yeah, give us your next one.
I'll stick with Chelsea for my next one. So, a man who literally anything he touched turned into a goal, and then he signed for Chelsea from AC Milan for 30 million. It's Shevchenko. Just he did everything with AC Milan, won everything, Serie A, Champions League. You know, he won. I think he won Golden Boots over there for 2 seasons in a row or something like that as well. And he got to Chelsea and he was there 3 years and he only scored 9 goals in those 3 years, and which led to him going back to Milan on loan. And I just think he looked a shell of the player that he was in the Serie A when he was in the Premier League. Now it could be down to the league not suiting him and stuff like that, not settling into London, because we don't know what goes on off the pitch in terms of setting your family in and stuff. But for me, it was a big flop.
Yeah, Chelsea have had a few of them. I did a show with Ian earlier on the Chelsea Roar, and we were talking about the whole Lukaku situation.
Yeah,
And I brought up on the show, check it out there, the Chelsea Roar on YouTube. Make sure you hit a subscribe and bell notification button on that. Give it all the support you can as it grows.
definitely.
But we were talking about the curse of the number 9 shirt. And we were talking about Torres and
Torres.
Higuain and
Yeah,
Falcao, Chris Sutton, all these guys
yeah,
who have
yeah.
worn this shirt. That it just didn't work out for them, stuff like that.
No,
Now, I don't
no,
think Shevchenko didn't wear the number 9 shirt as far as I know, but
no, he
I'm
didn't.
not so sure. Yeah.
Talking to Torres, actually, I was over at the United Chelsea game. My mate Duffer came over, and it was his first time seeing Chelsea live, And I think it was 3 or 4 minutes into the second half. Torres rounds the Gea, absolute open goal, hits it into the Stretford end, and literally that miss got a bigger cheer than when we scored the 3 goals that day. It was brilliant. But yeah, Chelsea have had a few shockers over the years, haven't they?
Mm. Yeah, I was talking to Ian tonight about it, and I was saying now that this new model is in place with the Bowley error and stuff like that,
Yeah,
I think they'll be cleverer in their signings and they'll be
yeah,
held more to task on them. So they won't be just going out and grabbing a Morata or grabbing a
yeah,
Higuain. They'll do a lot more sense checking, and for that point, then signings will be a little bit slower, but they'll be more thought out and stuff like
yeah,
that. So they should be more
exactly.
successful. Um, I'll give you my next one. My next one is Sunderland till I die. Do I need to even mention it? Jack
Uh,
Rodwell.
yeah, Mr.
Um,
Rodwell.
Absolutely shocking. I think anyone who watched that series, um, do I even need to expand on it? 11.3 million from Man City, 70 grand a week. And crucially, they left out the clause to be able to reduce his salary, if you remember the show.
Yeah,
So his salary remained even when they were relegated. And he absolutely had no interest in playing for them,
no,
constantly injured.
on the
I think
massage table on the in the
he was on that
documentary most of the
treatment room
time.
for most of the
Yeah,
documentary and absolutely bred them dry of their money. And even when they tried to get rid of him, he wouldn't agree to
no,
moves and stuff like that. So yeah, Jack
he,
Rodwell, I think he has to go on most people's list, to be
yeah,
honest.
absolutely. And he was such a talent at Everton.
Yeah.
He was, the next big thing. Obviously, the media in England, like they do, built him up on this pedestal. But he got to move to City, and obviously, when you go to City, no disrespect to Everton, he was like a big fish in a small pond, and then he's
Yeah.
a small fish in a big pond when he goes to City.
Mm,
But the whole Sunderland thing, it was an absolute joke. To
mm.
be
Documentaries are
claiming,
great, aren't they? Real eye
yeah,
openers. It's really
yeah,
good to
yeah,
see.
yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I read, is he playing in Australia or somewhere now, somewhere like that?
Well, so long as he's actually playing, that's an
Well,
improvement on anything.
yeah, yeah, he's in some squad somewhere anyway.
Yeah,
He's probably picking up
absolutely.
a wage to say, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was an awful signing.
Give us your next one.
My next one is actually a current player, and unfortunately, he's the current Manchester United captain.
Okay.
80 million reasons why Harry Maguire is on my list. Just, yeah, where do you begin? Where do you begin?
Well,
Listen,
Ten Hag is coming in this season and he's going to be Sergio Ramos this season. So what's wrong with you? What are you worried about? He's going to
is
turn
he
all your
is
heads.
he
The 80 million will
magically
be the best 80 million you ever spent.
is he magically going to get a turn of pace? he's he's the slowest centre half I've seen in my life. He had a decent 2 months last year where we all were like, actually, yeah, he could be turning things around, and then he's just back to his normal self, like making mistakes, too slow. Um, he's all right in the air. You'd expect him the size of him to be decent in the air, but like you spoke about there a few minutes ago, cause with the price tags, 80 million, it's a lot of spawn deals to
Mm.
But listen, as I was mentioned before, I think it's slightly Solskjaer's fault as well for putting the armband on him too soon. I think it put extra pressure on his shoulders that he couldn't deal with. So in that sense, it's not his own fault that he was given the captaincy. Obviously, he was captain when he was with the likes of Sheffield United and Hull and Leicester, but
It's a
he's
difficult one to judge, isn't it, as well? Because United around the park have been poor in most positions, really. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's a difficult one to figure out with him. But I suppose Jose probably had the idea: just play a deep line, don't push up. You
And
know,
see how well that worked out.
keep him on the 18-yard line, and then they won't be able to turn him because it'll be too tight.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so he's in there, and again, like you said, for the price tag 80 million, he hasn't done enough for me to be honest with you.
mm,
So yeah, he's made my list.
yeah, absolutely. Very good against Estonia and all down Andorra, isn't
Yeah, yeah, surprising.
he?
Jack Rodwell be good against them. Never mind Harry Maguire.
Absolutely. Um, Next one that I put on my list, I'm going to actually skip one here because I don't want people feeling that it's all Man United or Chelsea or anything like that, because it isn't. Here's one that makes my list, and it's an interesting one as well because it kind of has to go on the list, but I don't think in recent times information has come out about this, and it kind of like it opened my eyes to what was going on there that at the time I didn't really know. So I went with Michael Owen, Newcastle.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Signed from Real Madrid, 22.5 million in 2005. Um, First 2 seasons with the club, he suffered a lot of injuries and stuff like that, and then tearing his ACL. I think he tore his ACL on England duty, wasn't it? Before going back to
yeah,
Newcastle. The opening moments in the 2006 World Cup game, actually against Sweden, he tore his ACL, if you remember. Um, but yeah, I just think a lot of stuff came out there as well, and you've heard like there's two stories there between himself and Shearer, isn't there?
yeah.
Where Shearer kind of tried to make out that he was feigning injury and stuff like that, and he
Yeah.
didn't want to play for the club and stuff like that. And
The two boys
um,
don't like each other at all.
no, and it runs deep to this day.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Both fairly strong in their convictions and stuff like that as well. But I think in terms of the price tag on this and what they expected to get in and stuff like that, he spent more time being a spectator than he did being a
Yeah,
player for them. And I think ultimately, um, that situation really is what cost Shearer his job at Newcastle as well, because
yeah,
it was a path of no return really with the two of them, and you would have thought like with Alan Shearer in there and Michael Owen, you would have thought like that's a partnership in there,
yeah,
in terms of him being manager and Michael Owen and the synergy between the two, and
yeah.
but yeah, it didn't
It
work
was
out, fell
mad.
on its
Yeah,
face.
I remember the last day of the season when they got relegated. They were playing Villa away, and you never would have expected them to get relegated. But you
Mm,
seen Shearer there, and like he often says it, he doesn't know why he went into management. But listen, his hometown club needed him, so he stepped up to the mark. And like I said, I know him and Owen haven't really spoken since. And like you said,
yeah.
it runs very very deep.
Yeah, I think about a year or two ago, I think they both did interviews in relation to it and stuff like that, didn't they? And it
Yeah,
came to I think an article came out, didn't they, where Shearer brought out this stuff about him feigning injury and not
yeah,
wanting to play, and he said there was time. Did he mention at one stage there was times where he wanted to bring him on and he refused to come on and all this kind of stuff, and then
yeah.
I think
Pressure,
Michael
professionalism.
Owen came out and he counteracted and stuff like that. That he loved nothing but playing and stuff like that, and
Mm.
he would never feign an injury, and he would never. And I kind of think there's probably two sides to that story as well, but certainly it would make for a riveting documentary if they ever did it and stuff like that,
Absolutely,
especially where
and
both boys don't talk. If
and
you could
that
get that
means
kind of, that Kane and Vieira thing where they
yeah,
came together
yeah,
after
yeah,
all those
yeah.
years, that one would be kind of cool to do, I think.
And that means
Um,
that Shearer won't be able to watch Love Island this year because Michael Owen's daughter's in it.
or he
All
might
right,
be
that's
more,
well.
or he might be more inclined to watch it.
That's
Um,
it.
yeah, give us another one.
We've gone for it on my number two on my list. I know we're not, but I've gone for two players that I think it was. just the first one anyway. It's just funny. It's just funny. Like it's Ali Dia for Southampton
Yeah,
given a trial on the basis that he was George Weah's cousin, and they only had two fit strikers at the time, if I can remember right. Yeah. Suna says that he only watched him in training once, and he had to throw him on there in the game, and it was just an absolute disaster. But
yeah,
for me, like it's a bad signing, but it's funny. Like it's just funny because they got him on a free anyway, that sort of way. But just the
yeah.
whole story behind it had to make the list. I had to,
Yeah,
and
they're the interesting ones, aren't they? Because if you've brought him in on a free,
yeah,
it's hard to say that he's a worse signing, that kind of way,
yeah,
because you didn't spend anything. Oh, he might
yeah,
have been a bit of signing
yeah,
out or something,
yeah.
but
No,
in
that
reality,
because it was a free sign. Like I said, it was just the
yeah,
story behind it was so
yeah,
hilarious at the time
yeah,
that
you-
I had to put it on the list. But the one that's beside him is another Manchester United signing, and it's our mate Beppe, absolute Beppe.
yes, yes, yeah,
Um,
absolutely,
we signed him. Ferguson never seen him play. Carlos Queiroz had obviously recommended him to Sir Alex, and we bought him for a decent enough fee. And it was actually the same summer, and I remember it well. Van der Vaart went to Spurs for 5 million less than what we paid for Beppe.
that's right. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah,
Um, so it was he. I think how many games did he play? Must have been a lot of it on the coming off the bench. But like you think of Sir Alex Ferguson and how he had every little inch of detail down to a T, and then for not to even look at the lad and go off Queiros's recommendation was absolutely madness. I thought,
was probably a first and a last, I would
yeah,
imagine.
yeah,
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 probably a first and a
without a
last.
doubt. But yeah, I think every United player has to have Pepe on that list at some stage. Like I
Yeah, well,
said, we could do 11 United players.
yeah, well, I think what we do is we will do that over the coming weeks. What we'll do is we'll select maybe the top four or the top six clubs, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at United and Liverpool and Chelsea
Yeah,
and all, and we'll do a worst signings, kind of a combined 11 for
yeah.
each of those
Because
positions or something like that.
in fairness, when you go through the list, I know Ali Dia was there for Southampton, but it's all the bigger teams because you don't really concentrate on, say, the Southamptons or the Burnleys or the Norwich or their type of signing. So I think that's why a lot of the, like you say, Liverpool, Chelsea, United players have made both our lists.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just to remind our viewers, we are going through Premier League worst signings. And we have compiled our list. So if you drop down into the comments there, you can let us know what your ones are. But certainly one that creates interesting debate constantly all the time. I think there's a little bit of overlap in the lists and stuff like that,
A little bit.
but not a huge amount. I'll give you my next one. Sticking with Manchester United, um, I went with
Drum
Owen
roll.
Hargreaves.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Signed from Bayern Munich, 22.5 million, 2007. Came in on the back of a huge expectation.
mm.
Had done very well in the German league, and had stood out. Came in debut season, won the double in his debut season, which is interesting when you think
Yeah.
about
He
it as
was.
being a worse signing.
Yeah,
Um,
he was meant to come in the season, but the summer before, and obviously he was injured, failed the fitness test, so they revisited it a year later.
yeah,
Again, he's one of these players that was unlucky with injury throughout his whole career. Um, Obviously, I know he went through a bit of depression as well
yeah.
following that. So again, these are the type of things that we don't, as football fans, you don't really take into consideration. But yeah, then he went to City, which a lot of people forget. I think he only played one game for City, and then he
Yeah,
retired.
yeah. I mean, you could really. I suppose when you look at it, his career was really over at 27, wasn't it, with the injuries, which is a shame, really, because even when you listen to him now on punditry and stuff like that, he has a very good mind for the game and he understands the game and stuff like that. But just obviously the physicality and the injuries that he had compiled on his way caught up with him big time, and it just
Yeah.
no,
I
literally,
will.
what did he say? He had five more appearances in the Premier League, and four of which came in his final three seasons.
Yeah,
So like four
it's mad
appearances in
stuff.
his last 3 seasons, which
The
is sad for the lad as well,
Yeah. Now the two things I
Um,
can remember is his free kick against Arsenal just inside the second half in Old Trafford, and then scoring a penalty in '08 against Chelsea in Moscow. They're the
yeah,
two things that would stick out for me, but they're the only two things.
yeah. Give us your next one.
Um, one that the sight of his face still irritates me. Um, he's as far as I know, he's leaving PSG. But when he signed for us from Real Madrid, I had very high expectations of him. I remember watching him in the Champions League final, Real against Atletico, and he absolutely ran the show for Madrid. So when I got him in as a United fan, I was very excited. But that soon turned into absolute disappointment. So I'm going with Angel Di Maria. Um, First was it was a record at the time, 59.7 million. And then
Yeah,
obviously in an open letter to Real Madrid fans, he stated that he never wanted to leave Madrid. So we've got a lad coming in that doesn't even want to be there.
that seems to be a theme going through these failings at United, doesn't it? You
Yeah.
had it with Alexis Sanchez,
Sanchez,
you,
yeah.
you had it with Di Maria.
Yeah.
I'm not sure with Falcao what happened. But with Di Maria, he's one that comes up on a lot of lists. I mean, he was on, I think, of all the lads, and we'll go through the lads in the WhatsApp group. They sent us in their list to run
Barely.
down through as well. Some interesting picks there from the lads. And Di Maria was on most of their lists.
Yeah.
Um, but like he
And
was he was a sensational footballer, wasn't he? Like
he was, and
what
even in his
happened at
first
United?
I don't know, but even in his first 2 or 3 games, I watched him in, and he actually done decent. Like he did, and then I don't know again whether it was like settling into life in Manchester or his heart's in Madrid, but he was just an absolute disaster waiting to happen. Like, listen, no one can question his quality as a footballer, but his quality as a human being is absolutely disgusting in my eyes, and
Or his
that's the
quality as a
noise.
footballer at Man United?
Yeah, well, listen, but like that's me putting it nicely as well for our viewers out there. There could be a few other words I could say about him, but yeah, no, never took to him. Just like I said from the start, it was a disaster waiting to happen, and
Mm,
he got the move to PSG. Now we still got 40 odd million off PSG, so it
yeah.
wasn't for the time that he was there and for how he played for us, it wasn't too much of a disaster in terms of getting something back from in return.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is United that was run as a very tight business as well and stuff like that as well. So they were, they always made sure they got something back,
Yeah,
regardless of how
exactly.
difficult it was. I've only one left on my list because of our overlap, because we spoke of Andy Carroll and stuff and Franny
Oh yeah,
Jeffers. So my last one again is a Man United one. And again, it just so happens, as you said, you could pick 11 from Liverpool and United, no problem. But this one was Juan Sebastian Veron.
yeah.
Signed from Lazio, 38.3 million in 2001. Was player of the month in his first month there.
Mm.
But then faded away and never really fitted into that United midfield.
No.
Came in at the time, and I think at the time, am I right? Alex was trying to change up that midfield at the time that had been in there, the Keane and Scholes and all that, and he was trying to
So
put
yeah,
in something different. And he came in, and I remember watching him even at the time playing for United, and it just seemed the furthest thing than what United stood for.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, no
He,
doubt at times he was a sensational footballer, especially at Lazio. But it seems to be that kind of trend that when these guys, especially South American guys and stuff like that, when they come over, they settle very, very well in the likes of
mm,
Italy or Spain or that kind of thing. But when they go to the Premier League, I don't know whether it's a culture shock to them
yeah,
or whether they feel, very quickly that it wasn't the move that they should have made or whatever it was. But for some reason, they don't seem to settle. And you
yeah,
know yourself, when you have an unhappy footballer, you're not going to get quality
yeah.
football out of him.
Yeah, no, I remember when he was in Italy, he used to play in a diamond, and then he came to us, and obviously we were kind of playing that 4-4-2, and obviously, like you said, Keane and Scholes were there, Nicky Butt would come in. We'd often had Phil Neville playing in the middle of midfield as well. But for for such a talented footballer, and listen, he went on to Chelsea then, not too long after that. But
Mm.
I remember going over. I think it was the second game, and I thought his movement off the ball. I don't know whether it was laziness or whether because Keane was such a workhorse that he seemed, lazy playing beside him, but he didn't look interested enough for my liking. Great player, socks down below nearly over the beside the ankles, but he's
Grealish before Grealish was a thing.
exactly spot on,
Yeah,
close, spot on.
yeah.
But yeah, listen, no doubt in his quality. Obviously, we've seen it with Argentina over the years, and obviously glimpses after he left United. But I just don't think he was ever the same player after he left Italy.
Yeah, I think you find with that Italian style at the time as well, plus the South American style as well. It would come across to a guy like Kane, who's an absolute helter skelter workhorse. It would come across as a lazy style. But I'm not sure whether it was lazy or it was a combination of cleverness and just being laid back
Yeah,
in
yeah. It could be
surveying
a
the
mix.
situation.
Yeah, could be
Yeah,
mixes. I watched Berbatov as well live in Old Trafford, and you would have thought the same about him. But the minute
yeah.
he gets the ball at his feet, you just feel like something's going to happen.
They come alive.
But
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So maybe it might have been a little bit of that.
Yeah, but you could 100% understand how someone like Roy Keane would get highly frustrated in that being beside him. Highly
Definitely, definitely,
frustrated, you know what I mean?
definitely.
Yeah. I'd
But
imagine Roy Keane and Juan Sebastian Varane had plenty of chat at times on training grounds. Um,
absolutely,
Interesting.
Luke Chadwick in the background going to get into the team. He was.
Yeah, and for a medal.
That's it. But
Um,
now I've a few little honourable mentions. Obviously,
yep,
people. Now he won't be first on my list, but people always talk about Toibi. Obviously, the goal, Letizia through the legs. One interesting one, which United fans will remember, William Prunier, centre half, that we signed at a time where we were kind of struggling. Um, but again, they're United players. I could have had Torres in there. He's moved to Chelsea, like we
mm.
spoke about earlier. So yeah, just wanted to mention those. And listen,
Yeah.
there's a list of about 50 or 60 others that I could have mentioned, but
The Toyebi one was the one that triggered the group today on WhatsApp.
oh yeah,
Um, I assumed he went in on a free, but Darren corrected me and said no, he actually went in for 4.5 million.
5 million, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it was an interesting one. Then I was kind of thinking afterwards, I was thinking the fact that he went in for 4.5 million makes it worse.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
certainly he was one.
again, it was sorry for coming across because it was at the time where we were struggling. We'd found the hell there. Mark Bosnich came in at one stage, and I remember being over at United against Coventry match with my dad, and we had Andy Gorham in goal. So we were. It was at a time where we were really, really struggling to replace Peter Schmeichel, and then at the end of that season, Barthez came in. So it was
Yeah,
that's another that's another thing
that's
for another
another that's
day.
another that's another story.
Yeah.
I'll just flash up there on the screen the picks anyway, so people can reference them when they're doing their own and stuff like that.
All right.
That's the picks that we have there and some of the synopsis by it. Greg from On the Slab, head out there onto YouTube, On the Slab horror show that he does. He's also involved in Retrotainment with Ted and Retrotainment Recast. They do some really great shows out there. Recently did a recast on Top Gun and stuff like that and all. And
Class.
Greg has some great interviews out there with actors from horror movies and stuff like that. So doing a stellar job. I'll run down some of the ones he gave us. We're not going to do the whole list because obviously there's crossover. Safe to say Pogba's in there,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
doesn't really need any detail. Um, he has Sanchez in there, Di Maria, Mangala.
Mangala, yeah.
Mangala's in there, 43 million. He has Drinkwater, Carol Benteke, Soldado, and Bakayoko
Soldado, yeah.
are the two that
Soldado,
stick out.
good
So he had
penalty
your one
taker.
in there, Ali Dia and all, and Maguire and Shevchenko and all those.
Yeah.
So, interesting one. I'm just bringing up the list here, because it did generate a bit of debate.
Actually, Cole, just while we're there, what would you have thought of Robbie Keane's move to Liverpool at the time? And looking back at it now,
I would have been excited for it, but I don't think he came in. Was he Benitez when he was, wasn't he?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
I
number
don't
seven shirt.
I think he's come out before and he has said that it wasn't the right move and he probably shouldn't have moved, but he didn't really get the chance. I don't think Benitez ever really gave him the chance or believed him. And it was really kind of a trigger signing, wasn't it? Really,
I remember it, and anytime I seen him, it was like he was trying too hard to score. To say he
Yeah,
scored for Liverpool, it was like he was trying too hard at the time, and it was you looked at him and just thought, just relax and play naturally like you always
yeah.
do.
I have
But
to say I was excited because the history of Irish players going into
mm,
Liverpool as well, will create that excitement for you as well, But it
yeah,
was certainly an interesting one. Dino, who does be on the Shankly sessions with me from time to time,
do
and
you know?
we go over and do the trips. Who has he got in here? He had Alberto Aquilani actually.
Hey,
Um,
go on to Dino. Dino's picks are sponsored by IKEA dressers. Go ahead.
he had one off Norwich there. Is a Kiki van Wolfswinkel.
Wolfswinkel, do you remember him? Yeah, yeah,
Wolfswinkel,
yeah.
yeah. So he's gone back a bit. And the other one he had is Moise Kane.
Yeah, yeah,
Moise Kane.
yeah.
I think we had everyone else covered on it. Yeah, Balotelli, Drinkwater, your one, Ali Dia, that one you came up with. That's come in a lot actually.
I just remember because it was
Um,
on football's funniest moments on Sky One at Christmas time there as well, and it just kind of brought it back to my memory. Graham
yeah,
Simpson.
Ian from the Chelsea Roar and Dynamos doesn't. He sent in his list as well. But I think at the time when he was doing his list, he was thinking more the current
Okay,
season
yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to the Premier League years.
Premier
But
League, yeah,
we'll give his list anyway. No guess on top of his list, Lukaku.
yeah,
No
yeah.
surprise there at all. Jack Grealish, is Jack Grealish in
Yeah,
there as
yeah,
well?
yeah. Well, look, for
Um,
like going back to what you said earlier, for a price of 100 million, only 3 goals and 3 assists. Again,
yeah,
it's probably that bit like he was the big player in Villa, and now he's surrounded by big players. So,
yeah.
oh,
I'm just going down through some. He's some interesting ones there as well. Brian Gill. Or
yeah,
Hill, I think they pronounce it, don't they? He went to Spurs,
yeah,
and I think he's gone back to Germany. Has he on loan or
Germany,
something like
yeah.
that? He had
Is
Edward in there.
Edward from
Yeah,
Celtic to Palace?
yeah,
I thought he done
um,
all right with Palace.
yeah. I would have thought so as well. Like,
He got two on his debut, and like obviously, Oyu and Zaha are in form. He's coming off the bench, so. But I
yeah,
thought he done decent at Palace. I have to say.
yeah. I think he's probably looking as well. This one, Jaden Sancho. Um,
Again, I've talked about this before. Like he had the Euros, he death threats after missing that penalty. He's come in. Solskjaer's played him in different positions, so I think he'll find his feet this season. I think now listen, he can for the money that was paid. Absolutely, I agree. But I just
yeah,
think I think some people are being a bit harsh on him. To be honest,
yeah. I think with those bigger signings like that, I don't think you can judge them just on that season.
mm.
You know what I mean? I think there's more to come. I think personally, I think Jack Grealish will be a much better player at Man City this season coming.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. The difference I say between Sancho and Grealish is obviously Grealish has had that Premier League experience. Sancho had a handful
mm,
of games for City back way back in the day, but he's definitely going to improve in this coming season, especially under
yeah,
Ten Hag.
he has Willock in there as well.
Willock, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't
Eh,
know what did he
Willock,
cost? What was he? 25 million.
yeah, I think when he was on loan at Newcastle, he was banging in the goals and doing really well. And then,
Yeah.
obviously the move became permanent. And I think he was out for a while with injury and stuff like that, wasn't he? He only came back in to the back end of the season. So,
Mm.
again, I think he'll do well under Eddie Howe next season. Depend and as well, it'd be interesting to see who'll be playing around him, and what big names will be there.
Yeah, he also has Varane on his list, um, which I would think is a little bit harsh. I wouldn't have Varane on my
Again,
list of worst signings at this stage. I think when he's played this season, he's done all right. He's been out with a number
yeah,
of injuries, and I
yes.
think COVID and stuff like that. And
I,
I think the problem as well, as you said earlier, when you have him playing there with Maguire or with Lindelof, you're kind of nearly carrying the baggage, aren't you, for two guys, really? So
Yeah,
it's
I've watched a lot of him when he has played this season, and anytime he's on the ball, he's very assured. He obviously is that experience that he gives himself a few yards on the strikers, like that, and he's very good in the air. I don't know. I think that is slightly harsh, to be honest. And again, I know he's been unlucky with injury, but when he's been in the team, I thought he's
yeah.
been decent. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one or two moments this season where he kind of messed up, but like, I mean,
but who
he's
doesn't at the back,
he's trying to adjust as well. He's coming into a
Mm,
whole new league and a whole new situation. And when you think of the upheaval at United with the change of managers and then everything else that went on with Ralph for the last 6 months,
mm.
which you could really wash away. Yeah, I think he's a bit harsh to have him on the list. But yeah, good list there by Ian. But uh, who's Greg got as well? Oh, he has a pet peeve for Greg as well is Saul Niguez. Saul
Yes, yeah,
Niguez, yeah, came in and just
that was
hasn't
a
really
no. There was
hasn't really
big
done.
hopes and expectations from him coming in from Atletico, obviously on loan, and I think Chelsea at the time were thinking they think they're after stealing this, and hopefully signing him a permanent deal. But I say he's been sent on a flight back to Madrid, pretty sharpish.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but that's it. Yeah, that's the list and the input from the boys and stuff like that off the
Happy
WhatsApp group and
days.
stuff like that. So there's some interesting picks there. But yeah, I think it would be really interesting to go and do like a combined 11. I wonder how difficult would it be to like find one for each position
Oh,
in a
I
team and
won't,
stuff like
won't say it'd be that hard for us.
that.
Had some shockers in the past, like
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, listen, it's been a pleasure having you on as
thanks
always.
for having me on.
Smash up those like buttons and subscribe buttons and all that over there on YouTube, the upper tier. If you want to contact the show, it's on Twitter at the upper underscore tier. I always get caught up on that one.
Hey!
Sometimes I get it wrong. It's the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. Audio version show Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Um, and you'll get us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It's been an absolute pleasure, our resident referee, and we'll be back with more shows later in the week without a doubt. Cheers, bro.
Definitely. Cheers, guys. Thanks a million, man.